Take it from the top, maestro. Unraveling the Explained, take 2, and action. Oh, Unraveling the Unexplained, take 3. We don't have our shit together today.
What's up?
I don't have my vape. I swear to God, we can do this. We do this.
Editing is fun.
It's the magic of unreality, where I edit out everything that I don't want you to see. All right, welcome everybody to Unraveling the Unexplained. My name is Kat. I am a longtime astral traveler and spirit consultant. This is my brother John, longtime fan of the creepy and the paranormal.
Hello, folks.
If you are new, welcome. If you are returning, thank you so much. If you're noticing how ugly my wall is, sorry for it, but we're reorganizing and redoing the studio a little bit here, so it's just going to be ugly for a minute, and then it'll look real cool, I promise. My brother has picked out a video for me to react to. I don't know what it is, but we are about to find out together.
For those not familiar with the term AWOL, it means absent without leave. But one of the more interesting reality checks after joining the military was finding out that I no longer had the freedom to travel whenever and wherever I wanted.
Harsh reality.
Yeah.
But you know, it's also true of jobs, like full-time jobs.
You don't get to just go whenever. You do have to put in for
I feel like this is a harsh reality that nobody tells kids. Kids are, we spend all of our time telling young people, like, well, when you grow up, you can do what you want, but you can't do what you want now. You need to do your chores. But literally, that's not the case.
It's even more the case when you're an adult. You have more chores as an adult.
Yeah, you have more chores. You do have your own money, so if you want to go somewhere, you can. But at the same time, like, the options for that are going to be a little more limited, too.
Yeah.
Time-wise.
You always had to tell someone where you were going, why you were going, and when you were going to be back. A leave request is basically like submitting a request for time off at work, but if you don't do it in the military, you go to jail. Family emergency? Well, you just hope that your emergency leave request gets approved. But you can't just leave. And yet, some people do. Why? Lots of reasons. Maybe there is something serious going on and they are emotionally overwrought, not thinking rationally. It seems that some people have much more interesting reasons for going AWOL, such as killing the Antichrist. Listen, I've read a lot of wild stories, but this one might just be the craziest. It's got everything.
That's a hell of a reason.
It is. I mean, I need less reason. I've always known that I'm not well suited to the military because I can't take orders from anybody. I can barely take orders from myself. So that was never going to work out well. But killing the Antichrist is,
It's definitely an out there reason.
I can see how. No, I really can't. Let's find out.
Yeah,
no, I really can't. Let's find out.
Ouija boards, demons, ghosts, mind control, UFOs, conspiracy to plot murder, wire fraud, heartbreak. This is the true story of 6 U.S. Army soldiers who were tried and convicted of abandoning their post in West Germany to fly to Gulf Breeze, Florida. Their reason? Because a spirit they spoke to through a Ouija board had warned them about the coming apocalypse and had ordered them to find and kill the Antichrist.
I knew the apocalypse was coming out of Florida.
It's always Florida.
It is Florida, man.
This is the story of the Gulf Breeze 6. The story of the Gulf Breeze 6 begins with 2 young Army specialists, 26-year-old Kenneth Beeson and 25-year-old Vance Davis. They were, by all accounts, well-trained and capable intelligence specialists in their field. These 2 young men shared a sincere fascination with all things paranormal, an interest that, for both of them, stretched far back to the days of their adolescence.
Can relate.
For Kenneth Beeson, his unexplained experiences began when he was just 5 years old. He woke up one night feeling thirsty, and as if on cue, he said that a ghost came forward, offering him a glass of water. And then there was Vance Davis. As a teenager, along with the paranormal, he began to develop an interest in various methods of hypnosis. At some point, he enrolled in the Silva mind control courses created by a man named Alex Merklinger.
I just wanted to jump in and say that the Silva mind control method, it is called that, but it's not controlling other people's minds. This was developed by a man, Jose Silva, in I believe it was the 1940s, and it's all about being able to control your own mind, your own thought processes. Yeah. So before it sounds like some craziness or some weird stuff, it was a technique that was developed to be able to control the thought processes of your own mind. It is not about controlling other people's minds, and I just want to jump in and say that.
Okay.
Some background context.
Virtual guy who also held a reputation as a con man, stemming from his convictions and prison sentencing for wire and mail fraud. Through these mind control courses, Vance told Kenneth that he had mastered the art of self-hypnosis through active imagination, a psychological technique that allows individuals to access their subconscious mind and explore their inner thoughts and emotions. Eventually, Vance's practice of hypnotizing himself would take a very interesting turn.
Basically, the Silva method is about meditation and self-mental control to reach reach your theta states and stuff. So it's not as weird and creepy as the video is making it sound.
During one of his self-imposed trances, Vance is said to have come face-to-face with a green-skinned alien being who identified herself as Kia. They spoke for hours. Kia told Kenneth all about her species and about the wider universe. Part of this included telling him about a protective alien group called the Alliance, which was at war with a more hostile coalition of beings known as the Others.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. Is this why you were like, this video sounds like it's for you?
It sort of got my attention at that point, yeah.
Yeah, because I have always called some of what I interact with the Others. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that was just my word for that, which was not me. They're other than me. Yeah. But that is the same word that I arrived at when I was like 12, 13 years old. I have always gotten the impression of some sort of
You've told me in the past that you've gotten the feeling that there's several different groups and they're not always working towards the same purpose.
Yes. Not everything that's out there is love and light oriented, and not everything out there is necessarily agreeing with each other or coming from a similar mindset. There does seem to be some disagreements about the handling of situations, or the handling of situations here in the 3D. We'll see where this goes, but yeah, I can see why you picked this video for me to react to, because it definitely, so far, like, I've never met Kia, but so far it kind of like, it tracks. There are certain things that sound similar to things that I've experienced too.
Bonded as friends by their shared interests and bizarre paranormal experiences, Kenneth and Vance spent much of their free time researching the subject of the strange and unexplained. They attempted communication using a broad array of methods, ranging from guided meditations to the use of tarot cards. While all of this took place privately, eventually a few other like-minded soldiers in their unit fell in with the group. PFC Michael Huckstadt, age 19, PFC Chris Perlock, age 20, PFC William Setterberg, age 20, and even one of their NCOs, Sergeant Annette Eccleston, age 22. As a group, the 6 young soldiers continued making attempts to contact spirits. However, all of their initial methods repeatedly fell short of contacting anything. All of that changed when they decided to pull out a Ouija board. For the group, the board was a last resort. They considered it rather juvenile, the board having a reputation in the late 1980s as a cheap party game. Any ounce of doubt that they had quickly vanished the moment.
Yeah, it does. I literally have one, and I hesitate to use it. I think there are safer methods of making contact, at least for myself.
I have wondered, because I wasn't sure if you've actually used a Ouija board before.
I have, yeah. I don't necessarily recommend it. Like, I do have one.
Okay, but what are your reasons for not recommending it?
It's less controlled. And especially young people, if you're asking for whatever to come through, like, spirits come through and talk to me. Like, as you gain experience as a practitioner, you realize that you're better off with your own energy and saying, you know, I'm reaching out to benevolent beings of light, you know, or
as to whatever is going to answer the phone.
Right. You have more control over your own mental landscape and your own energy when you're crafting things yourself. My experiences with Ouija boards have not been pleasant. You know, like at the end of the day, using a Ouija board, now things are shuffling around my bedroom floor. Well, it's a last resort, but not because I consider it childish, but because experience for many people is too much. You'd be better off slowly acclimating yourself to receiving information in a different way. I would never recommend this as a fun party game for children or something too.
Yeah.
Especially young people have an opener mind about things. So it's you're more likely to end up with some messed up result as a result of it. Let's see what their result was and we can talk about it a little bit.
The moment the planchette started moving across the board, as the 6 soldiers received messages from at least 7 different spirits. Most of these spirits identified themselves using names corresponding to biblical figures, prophets from the Old Testament like Zechariah, and the names of several of the disciples of Christ, including Mark and Timothy. The group was shocked to eventually be contacted by a spirit claiming to be Mary herself, who was reaching out specifically to the only female in the group, Sergeant Annette Eccleston.
I would also be careful of this. I'm pausing this video a lot, but that's because a lot of things keep coming up. So there's also pause this video at exactly 11:11 for those of you who are into synchronicities. But for some reason, that is not uncommon, even among people who are not particularly religious. Like those of you who are familiar with Abraham Hicks, is a channeled entity calling themselves Abraham. Like the medium is actually, her name is Esther, but Abraham is a biblical name. Back in the day, there was what was her name? Roberts. I'll remember her first name in a minute, but was channeling an entity called Seth. Seth is also a biblical name. So I'm not sure what the deal with that is. I don't know if it's a comfort level with Western people or if it's,
I mean, it could be that those names themselves have a certain amount of energy to them because of their
association.
Religious association, yeah. So some entities just naturally attach to those names easier because there's already energy and power within the name.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. So, but it is weird, and it's interesting to point out that it's not an isolated incident with this group of things that are producing biblical names. I have never personally in my interactions interacted with anything that produced a biblical name towards me or said a biblical name towards me. I won't lie, I've had Jesus in the chat before. Like I've had Jesus standing at the foot of my bed, but it wasn't like he showed up and was like, "Hi, I'm Jesus." Like there was really no need for that. Like if you got Jesus in the chat, you know, right? But aside from that, I've never interacted with anything in this manner that produced a biblical name at me. But it's not uncommon to see it happen with people.
The most domineering voice to come through the board, however, wasn't any of the spirits going by a biblical name. It was a mysterious entity that identified itself only as Sapphire.
Well, we got introduced, basically, she said, and it was a woman, it felt very womanly, I guess, in the way it was moving, a person named Sapphire. And we asked who it was, and she, where she was from, and she basically said she used to be a woman from Georgia, believe it or not. Yeah, so it was someone in the other realm, which had me and both Ken and most of us really spooked, so-called to a dead person.
Over the course of the group's many consecutive Ouija board sessions, Sapphire relayed a terrifying warning to the 6 soldiers, a warning that the world was on the cusp of terrible, apocalyptic events. One of the first predictions was that a major earthquake would occur in Iran, resulting in staggering casualties. Over 300,000 people would be either injured or killed. This would soon be followed by other significant geological disturbances, more devastating earthquakes in Russia and along the west coast of the United States. This would lead to volcanic eruptions.
So I will look into this and insert. Geologic activity along the west coast of the United States is not uncommon. We're a subversive zone. So we do get, obviously everyone knows California gets earthquakes. We sometimes get them up here. It's the Ring of Fire. We got mountain ranges, we've got volcanoes, we have a geologic submersive zone. I am not sure about places like Iran and Russia and what sort of geologic activity, like why would you be having an earthquake in Russia?
And catastrophic weather conditions impacting global geography and climate. Sapphire's predictions also included social and political upheavals, forecasting wars in the Middle East involving the US, Iraq, and Israel. Social unrest and economic collapse in the United States would lead to widespread riots and martial law. Europe would undergo economic and political unification, leading to shifts in global power balances. These events would set the stage for significant shifts in technology and religion, including the revealing of extraterrestrial life and the emergence of a new world order. In the midst of this chaos...
That's creepy. How long ago was this?
Late 80s, I think. Late 80s, early 90s. I don't know the exact timeline, but I think it's late 80s.
I don't know. Why is it tracking? Why is it tracking, though?
There are a few corresponding elements.
There are a few corresponding elements, and for people who aren't aware, sapphire as a name is blue, is associated with the throat chakra for speaking and stuff. So just, for people who are not aware of their chakra alignments, like the color blue or sapphire is associated with the throat chakra. Anyway, interesting side note for people who are interested in like maybe where some of these names come from or whatever.
In global transformation, the Antichrist would appear, a man who would bring about more devastating wars, major religious reform, persecution against all Christians, and immense human suffering. Despite their prodding, the 6 soldiers were unable to obtain a specific identity for this person, Sapphire only telling them that he would emerge out of the smoldering ruins of Europe in the year 1998. The year being significant because mathematically it was 3 times the biblical number 666. Proclaiming himself to be the Messiah, Sapphire went on to say, this person would be hailed as a peacemaker by the masses, including all major religious leaders. In reality, he was of course a wolf in sheep's clothing. According to Sapphire's messages, these 6 young soldiers did have a part to play. Their psychic connection was no accident. Sapphire told them that they had been chosen by God himself to embark on an urgent and important mission, to prepare for the coming apocalypse.
Never trust anything that tells you that.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Question everything.
Because it could just be a spirit that's fighting with you.
Well, again, like when you're receiving contacts or whatever, you're receiving them through your own psyche or whatever. So some of that may be your own desire to be able to have an impact manifesting. But I never trust anything outright that's saying stuff like that. Because I think it's all too common. I won't lie. Like I've had certain things tell me that I have parts to play and things to do and things they want me to do. I have always been connected in this way. I have always spoken to entities that are on the other side, but I have always been highly skeptical of anything telling me they want me to do things. Mm-hmm. That's suspicious. That's sus. I'm not involving. Here's the thing is all too easy to fall into a pattern, an ego pattern.
Yeah.
I'm special. I'm the chosen one. I'm supposed to do something. Right, exactly. It's an ego trap, and I have always avoided the ego trap. Like, no. Why would I do whatever the dream demons are telling me to do? Yeah. Like, I'm cool. I'm not involving myself in nothing like that. So I'm just, anybody out who receives contacts like that, who think they have some special part to play, that something's trying to make you feel special, important, a part of the plan or whatever, watch out for the ego trap, right? That's the energetic trap. And I've always avoided that like the plague.
Yeah.
Don't show up in my bedroom telling me you want me to be part of some sort of overarching scheme of something that's happening. Like, nuh-uh.
And be among the chosen few survivors tasked with guiding humanity towards the light of God in its aftermath.
Mm-hmm. No.
While the soldiers were fairly convinced that they were in direct contact with a divine being, they were initially unsure of what to make of these incredible predictions about the future. That is, until one of the prophecies spelled out on the Ouija board came true.
A powerful earthquake hit Iran early this morning, killing at least 25,000 people, according to the Iranian government, and injuring thousands more. The quake was centered about 200 miles outside Tehran, in a remote mountainous farming region. It measured 7.3 on the Richter scale. Many towns were leveled. The U.S. has offered to send humanitarian aid. It has not yet received a request from Iran.
On June 21st, 1990, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck in a Caspian Sea region of northern Iran.
So I guess that answers that question.
Yep.
Devastating an area of 20,000 square kilometers, or 7,700 square miles. This seemed to be a chilling wake-up call. Having been initially skeptical about all the prophetic messages, this event was apparently all the confirmation they needed to know that the end times were upon them and that God had truly called them into service. The immediate problem was that they were all active duty in the Army. It's not as if they could simply explain their God-given mission to their chain of command and expect to be dismissed from the NSA listening post in West Germany. They needed more guidance. Once again, they turned to the Ouija board.
Is it wrong of me to think that if you had tried to explain this to your chain of superiors, they may have given you a just discharge for mental illness?
Maybe. Honestly, I'm not sure how they would respond to that.
Like, if you had, like, explained this, they might have been like, okay, well, we don't believe that, but I'm not sure you're in a right state of mind to actually be intelligence officers,
Yeah, not
so...
sure we need you working for the military at this point.
Right. So, I don't know, you may have actually gotten a discharge for explaining this situation. I'm not sure.
According to Sapphire, the best course of action was for the soldiers to abandon the military, regardless of the consequences, then quickly make their way back to the U.S. From there, the group would retreat into the mountainous regions of the country in order to continue their spiritual development and preparations for the coming disasters. Over the course of the next month, members of the Ouija board group had quietly started selling off personal belongings in an attempt to raise money for their life on the run. Meanwhile, Kenneth Beeson reached out to Anna Foster back in Florida, telling her of their plans and how they would need a safe house to lay low in. It was likely the military would quickly investigate the disappearance of 6 soldiers from an NSA listening post and start looking for them. Without any hesitation, Anna told Kenneth that he and his gang of runaways were welcome to hide out in her home in Gulf Breeze, a small town not too far outside of Pensacola, where all of the soldiers had been stationed during their intelligence training. They had a destination. On July 9, 1990, using both official and falsified off-base Liberty passes, the soldiers casually walked off of the Augsburg listening post. They headed to the train station. The sheer weight of 6 soldiers with top-secret security clearances abandoning their posts at such a critical time meant the consequences of their actions could be severe.
It's like, did the thought never cross their mind? Like, first of all, why would a blue alien be giving you a mission from God?
Yeah.
Like, that's a little bit it says to begin with, but moving you out of your post that's potentially critical. Question everything, right? I would not have trusted this situation at all.
But they did specifically say that some of these soldiers were a bit on the gullible side. Like, when you want to believe something, it makes it harder to question it, I think.
And that's what I said about ego. Like, check your own ego, check your own, how special do you want to be? It's so important to be balanced in that understanding of self. And a lot of spiritual people will talk to you about humility, right? And I don't think you need to take it to a humility place, but it's because humility is like, you're not less than anybody else. You don't need to be humble before things, but check your own ego, because if you truly understand, this is so important, if you truly understand that all things are equal in creation, that there's no need for you to be humble before anything because you're a powerful spiritual being just like everything else, then you also understand that there's no need for you to be better than anyone else or more important than anyone else. This is the balancing of the ego state, right? Because our ego is our need to feel self-important or our need to feel like we matter. It's a kink in the armor. It's a kink in the spiritual armor, in the self-armor. Insecurity is the root of most evil in the world, right? So it's a place where we have vulnerability.
It's a motivation that can lead to poor actions.
It's a motivation that can lead to poor choices, for sure. You are not less than anything. You are not less than the mightiest supernova in the universe, but you're not better
than anybody else.
Than a blade of grass.
Yeah.
Like, understanding what equality actually means is a way of making sure that you have your ego in check.
Hoping to throw off anyone tracking their movements, they chose not to fly directly to Pensacola, Florida, but to Knoxville, Tennessee. So the group pooled their cash to purchase a vehicle, a rundown 1970s Volkswagen van. Piling inside, they then immediately drove the 400 miles south to Florida. Their failure to return to base had not gone unnoticed. With their command being unsure of their whereabouts, their official status was considered absent unknown. But if the following investigation determined their absence was voluntary, it would be updated to absent without leave, or AWOL. Considering the sensitive nature of their classified intelligence work, the Army quickly spread the names and faces of the 6 soldiers far and wide, anxious to find them. The initial underlying presumption was that the young soldiers had potentially been taken by a foreign group.
Yeah, no shit.
Whether their disappearance was involuntary or not, And certainly if they had willingly defected to the Soviets or some other group, the US military could be looking at a major security breach. In short, the sudden disappearance of 6 intelligence personnel raised all kinds of hell.
Yeah, no shit. Like, you literally caused a major fucking panic.
Yeah, 6 intelligence people in a critical position just up and vanishing.
Right? You could have been taken. You could have been taken for interrogation. You could have defected with all kinds of sensitive material. Like, this actually caused a lot of problems.
As American and European authorities began searching high and low for them in Germany, Kenneth Beeson and the 5 other runaways were crossing the Pensacola Bridge, entering the city of Gulf Breeze, Florida. Their first stop would be Anna Foster's home. They would spend a few days lying low, gathering supplies, and preparing to drive their van back north to the Appalachian Mountains, where, according to Sapphire's instructions, they would await the coming apocalypse. And here is where their story collides with a very odd coincidence.
Tonight on Hard Copy, there's been a new wave of strange activity in the skies over Gulf Breeze, Florida, and we've got the latest pictures. Doug Bruckner shows us what's going on in the town they call UFO USA.
Here it is. Here's our videotapes. Look at it. You tell us. We don't know, but it's there.
And what appears on those videotapes is a mystery. UFOs hovering as plain as day. Spherical, shiny objects seeming to defy gravity. And then in the blink of an eye, they're gone. But they keep coming back to Gulf Breeze, Florida.
Why the UFO is coming here, why we witness it so much, I don't know the answers to the why.
Ed Walters makes his living as a housing contractor. But 7 years ago, his life was changed forever when he looked to the sky and saw his first UFO.
Whether they knew it at the time or not, the 6 soldiers' arrival into Gulf Breeze, Florida, on a glorified mission to destroy the Antichrist, could not have come at a stranger time. Beginning in 1987 and over the following 2 years, the small Panhandle community played host to hundreds of sightings of supposed extraterrestrial craft and other flying objects.
I'm pausing this video, so this is about to be such a long video. Oh well, sorry.
That's fine.
Here's the thing, okay, is I'm going to explain a little bit about the field of probabilities, or a feature of reality that people are not used to tapping into, right? So when energy amasses on the other side to create activity on this side that manifests in 3D reality, you can actually feel the currents of it piling up. So it's like, this is a very dense level of reality, 3D reality. Energy needs to be highly compressed in vibrational format in order to push through into this field. And so it is, from the other side, is far easier to feel where those currents are going, to feel the probability of activities that are going to come to manifest. This is anybody who's making predictions or can feel stuff coming through. This is how a lot of times psychics who are making predictions are operating, is because you can literally feel where the energy is most compressed before it comes to pass. So you're always just making a prediction based on how the energy feels. And this is, I mean, believe me or don't, is whatever, but I have literally been standing next to a woman in her deconstructed office as she was talking about what she wanted to have in there, and felt and heard, literally auditorily heard running water or trickling water, and was like, do you have a water feature that's going to go into your front lobby here? And she was like, oh yeah, I have a fountain, and I've got it picked out, and it's going to go right over here, and it's all this. She had put a lot of energy into the thought process of this fountain, that of the things, the elements of her office space that she was creating, that was the one that was the most solid for her. Because she had it picked out, she knew where it was going, she was very excited about it, she loves the water element feature of it. And so for me, it was literally, I could hear it in the room. I could hear the running water in the room, because that was where the most energy was compiled. That was the thing that was most likely to come to pass about that situation, right? So when you're somebody who can reach into the field of probabilities, it's like you can almost feel where those veins of energy are the most compressed, and there's the most momentum towards those things coming to pass. So for something on the other side like this, whatever Sapphire is, to be able to tell them things or make coincidences happen or whatever, is not unfeasible at all for something that's operating in a place where it is more easy to pick out the threads from the field of probabilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just because something on the other side is telling you things that's coming to pass does not necessarily make it, that's easily manipulatable information. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I could tell you something that's going to come to pass in order to lend legitimacy to myself. You know what I mean? So I'm just putting that out there as information, right? it still doesn't mean you should do something horrible.
The Gulf Breeze sightings, as they came to be known, became some of the best-known UFO sightings in history. The UFO sightings started when a local contractor named Ed Walters began producing photos of UFOs that he claimed to have taken in his front yard on the evening of Veterans Day, November 11, 1987. Using a Polaroid camera, Walters would snap numerous pictures of these UFOs. While many skeptics argued the photos were clearly a hoax, Walters was not the only eyewitness. Apparently, there were multiple witnesses who drew what they saw before his story was even published. UFO researchers have investigated the photos for tampering, as well as compared them with descriptions and drawings provided by other witnesses in the area. Despite the opposition, those who support Walters' claims have, to some people's satisfaction, provided at least enough evidence to believe that something strange did happen. But here's the thing about this small panhandle section of Florida. It is packed with military bases: Pensacola Naval Air Station, Hurlburt Field, and Eglin Air Force Base. As such, the UFO sightings caused quite the stir. After arriving at Anna Foster's home in Gulf Breeze, the group decided it would be best to split up. 5 of them would remain at the house, while Sergeant Annette Eccleston established an emergency campsite nearby as a fallback, and during that time, they kept in communication with the spirit Sapphire using the Ouija board.
Sapphire had told us that Gulf Breeze would be safe until Friday. Then we would stop in Texas to pick up our stuff and head for the mountain states to begin the rest of our lives and prepare for what was to come.
However, something unexpected happened that changed their plans. Anna Foster lived with a roommate by the name of Diana. And when Vance Davis met Diana, he almost immediately fell head over heels in love with her. According to Davis's later writings, he had had visions of Diana, his soulmate, dating back to his teenage years. As soon as he laid eyes on her, he just knew she was the one his prophetic dreams had been telling him about. So, Kenneth and Vance were now feeling at home, eager to spend some quality time with their girlfriends. But over the next few days, the other members of the group were not feeling so comfortable. After several days of prolonged boredom, the youngest member of the group, PFC Michael Huckstadt, decided to...
So I'm just going to throw out there that literally my eyebrow twitched like 4 times listening to that. So there is something weird and intervention-y about the girls being there in the soulmate connection or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll get back to that as more comes in, but like literally like my eye was like quivering listening to that there. So there's something in that energy. And with the like the UFO intervention or whatever, like we'll see what happens here, but there's something in that energy that like my involuntary twitching of my eyebrow.
Throw caution to the wind. He borrowed their rickety van and went into town. The van had a busted taillight. On the night of July 14th, 1990, 4 days after their group had snuck out of Germany, PFC Michael Huckstadt, driving alone in their van at the time, was pulled over by a Gulf Breeze police officer. The officer then couldn't help notice how tense this young man behind the wheel was as he questioned him. The officer then asked for his name. Michael gave him his real name. Sure enough, Michael Huckstadt's name was flagged in the system. The Department of Defense had been looking for him. After he was arrested, Michael was quickly turned over to local military authorities. The other 5 were rounded up, and all 6 of them were shipped north to Fort Benning, Georgia, where they were then placed in solitary confinement and interrogated. The military investigation that followed was extensive, with each member of the 6 being kept isolated and relentlessly questioned to expose any underlying motives of espionage or treason. The truth, as investigators were soon to discover, was far stranger than anything they could have anticipated. Once the press got involved, the whole story started to take on a life of its own. A media frenzy ensued. On July 20th, 1990, the Northwest Florida Daily News ran the following headline: 6 AWOL soldiers say they aimed to kill Antichrist. Their bizarre story drew national interest, with more sensational headlines about their mission from God being spread across every broadcast and newspaper stand in the country. Many believed the group had come to Gulf Breeze because of the UFOs, as opposed to their stated motive of simply needing a place to lie low. It didn't help at all to quell these leading connections when Kenneth Beeson was later found to have stated that he believed in reincarnation and that he had been sacrificed to the gods in a previous life. and that he also believed that the US government was in cahoots with aliens. He truly believed mankind was about to make an evolutionary step, which is why many alien entities were in orbit, on or under the Earth, and or in telepathic contact with people like him. Kenneth said that there were two alien groups: the Alliance, the good guys who believed in free will, and the others, who were abducting people and performing medical experiments on them. The spirit they spoke to through the Ouija board, Sapphire, confirmed to the group that the US government was working with the aliens.
It sounds so crazy, but so much of it sounds so familiar.
Yeah. There's echoes of your own experience to it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would be too much of a story to actually, I mean, the video is long to begin with, but I totally understand where these thought processes are coming from. Sapphire, being somebody who was a spirit, right, came from Georgia, was a human.
Yeah.
Obviously somebody who has connections to the human world or whatever. It sounds like some sort of attempt at an intervention of some kind, right? Some rogue, formerly human individual who is looking at the field of probabilities. It's hard to look at something like this and make sense out of it. It all sounds like crazy talk, right? But the coincidences pile up, right?
Yeah, kind of feels like it's very real in that sense.
Yeah, and I hesitate to, but I can speak towards like the direction humanity goes in, right? We can speak on that in a second.
For his part, Vance Davis was sincere in showing investigators documented proof that their defection and travel to Gulf Breeze was the result of the 8 Ouija board sessions. He explained how Sapphire, the spirit they had contacted, had warned them of a coming war. When some of Sapphire's prophecies, both minor and significant, started to come true, it convinced the 6 of them that they were dealing with genuine supernatural encounters. Vance assured them their decision to hide in Gulf Breeze was simply because they knew the area and Anna Foster lived there. It had nothing to do with UFOs. When he was interviewed by the press, Stan Johnson, a friend of Kenneth Beeson, spoke at length about their time as friends. Being a resident of Kenneth's home state of Tennessee, Stan had been the one to pick the 6 soldiers up at the airport in Knoxville, and his testimony seemed to contradict the group's statements about having no interest in UFOs.
He was a very nice fellow, but very gullible. He was one of these people who believed anything someone would tell him. The idea that he was arrested or that he was hanging around with a cult-like group didn't surprise me. He kind of lives in a science fiction fantasy world.
The Army's investigation ultimately failed to surface any real evidence suggesting a plot to commit murder. Much to the surprise of everyone following the story, by the end of the month of July 1990, the military investigation into the Gulf Breeze 6 came to a sudden and abrupt close. One article published on July 28th read, Washington, 6 U.S. soldiers who left their military intelligence post in West Germany and told friends they were going to rendezvous with Jesus Christ and UFOs have been discharged from the Army. But that's just the thing. After finding no evidence of espionage, the 6 soldiers were quickly offered a non-judicial punishment under the charges of desertion. The military quickly ended the investigation. The 6 were reduced to the lowest rank and forfeited half a month's pay, and then they were released from military service with what is widely reported as honorable discharges. And even when the case was eventually declassified, 1,400 pages of the military's 1,600-page report were redacted. Likewise, most members of the Gulf Breeze 6 and their known affiliates have refused to speak with the media about the ordeal, leaving newspapers and tabloid journalists to fill in the blanks. Although we only have Davis's word for it, along with many other fascinating claims, when he later published his writings, he does suggest that they may have been part of an experiment. Something that only adds to the mystery is that a few days before their release from confinement at Fort Knox, an anonymous letter was sent to several major news outlets and the U.S. Army, which read the following.
ABC, NBC, CBS, AP, UPI. U.S. Army. Free the Gulf Breeze 6. We have the missing plans, the box of 500-plus photos, and the plans you want back. Here is proof with close-ups cut out. Next, we send the close-ups, and then everything, unless they are released.
Theorists have often pointed to this as proof that the Gulf Breeze 6 had in fact tapped into something legitimate with their psychic dabbling, possibly even obtaining classified government knowledge on UFOs or psychic research. Whatever you think about it, the Gulf Breeze 6's story is certainly one of the most bizarre cases of desertion to come out of the U.S. military, and, as demonstrated by the Marine Corps Engineer School on Camp Lejeune, who banned the use of them outright in 2013, it wouldn't be the last time American servicemen would attempt to use Ouija boards to speak with something on the other side.
We will link this video in the description. Go check them out. Give them a thumbs up. Show your support. They appreciate that. So do we.
I imagine you have thoughts.
There's a lot here. So, as far as I've ever been able to tell, there is significant interest from other entities in this reality and what we're doing here as humans, right? We have a significant amount of potential and a good deal of value in this realm, this reality.
Mm-hmm.
We are at a point where technologically, the continuation of the way that things have been done previously by us, if we continue to do things that way technologically, we're at a point where that is world-ending. It is potentially disastrous.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that's a mystery to anybody, you know?
Not
like,
really. I mean, it's been a reality ever since the invention of nuclear weapons.
Right. And the coalition of power, you know, you now have significant wealth, significant military assets, significant technological, you know. But the underlying energy in all of that is fear and hate and the continuation of thinking there's some other, the other is coming to get you, the other is bad, the other is the cause of all your problems. And this is a tagline used by anybody who's trying to gain control over your thought processes, right? Because it's so much easier to blame the other, to point the finger, to cause, you know, the development of hatred.
Yeah, fear is a powerful tool of manipulation.
Fear is a powerful manipulative tool. Right. So there is something in all of this. And again, I can't even begin to tell you guys, like, my right eyebrow was twitching through like half of that. There are entities and things that attempt to intervene. All right. Sapphire sounds like she was a chick from Georgia who, from the other side's perspective, can see the trajectory of things and is trying to make some sort of intervention.
Mm-hmm.
But also the sense that I'm getting from it is there are other things on the other side that, sensing the intervention, also created their own counter-intervention.
Made sure they were in a place where they would be there for a few days and convenient tail light out.
Correct. I have gotten the sense from my interactions, and I won't go into like detailing it specifically, but I have gotten the sense from my interactions that there is some sort of organized effort or some sort of bureaucracy group, whatever, who has specific ideas about what they would like to see happen, and that there are other certain rogue entities who are, for lack of a better like way to describe it, some sort of like anti that or resistance effort. Right. Mm-hmm. And I won't speak specifically as to what the intentions are on either side or whatever. I have had interactions with both. But the sense that I get from it is that the bottom line is humanity, we're at a level where we cannot afford to continue the kind of vengeful, retaliatory, sort of fearful activities that we engage in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like the cycle has to be broken at some point. So throughout human history, we've, the persecuted become the persecutors. The cycle of fear and hatred and violence is just perpetuated. Mm-hmm. People want to be rich and powerful. They'll literally do anything, tell any lie, whatever, in order to gain that kind of a status. And then they'll do any kind of like harm in order to protect that status or feel important, to feel valid. The human ego needs to evolve beyond that point if we are going to have some sort of continued future survival, because our technology has developed to a point where that is
entirely too self-destructive.
Correct.
And it's not even just nuclear weapons and such. I mean, there's bio weapons, there's
the development of drones and AI. Like we're getting to a point where our technological capabilities
can't survive our own nature.
Can't survive. Yeah, we're etching our way towards a situation that's not good.
You don't have to be a prophet to predict the end of the world, because you can kind of see that trajectory to a degree, kind of just as a natural result of us growing to that degree of self-destructive power, combined with a relative difficulty in learning how to just accept each other and harmonize with each other to a degree, not be so aggressive towards one another.
There's an underlying invalidity or insecurity or fear that drives us to alienate one another, rather than recognizing that the experience is very similar for all of us. Like there's literally no reason to hurt other people. We're all experiencing the same circumstances, right? Regardless of what you believe. And there have been attempts at interventions in the past. Like, I am not a Christian, but, when you have someone like Jesus show up who's like, hey, look, if we walk around healing people and accepting people, like not rejecting lepers, not rejecting prostitutes, Jesus was very much like, who to be wary of? It's not the lepers. It's not the prostitutes. It's priests and rich people. Like, if you really read the scripture, he was really pretty clear about like where the problematic attitudes really were. But somehow that gets twisted into, meaning something different. And once again, it gets used to alienate the other, because we are all operating from a place of insecurity and invalidity and fear, which was never the message. Like, anybody who ever came speaking the real message never said anything like that. It's clear to me from the things that I've seen that there's a point at which we either had to put up or shut up. We either have to change the way that we think about each other and the way that we think about our world, or we have to live with the reality that, there are going to be significantly ungood consequences because we're incapable of doing that. I personally prefer to believe that we're capable of moving beyond it, of setting aside the ego. There's potential in us yet, right?
Yeah.
But the potential lies in being able to see beyond the manipulations. Anyone who's trying to control you with fear is not doing it for good reasons. And they're
not on your side. They're not your friend.
Well, they're literally on their own side.
Yeah.
And literally suffering from their own fears and delusions themselves. And just because they became rich or they became powerful or they're very passionate about how they say something doesn't make them right. Like, I know that it's easy to get swept up in that energy of somebody who believes their own Kool-Aid. You know what I mean?
The loudest, most confident voice is not necessarily the correct voice.
No, like, see Germany in the 1930s. Like, the loudest, most confident voice is not necessarily the right one. It's just somebody who themselves feels very passionate and insecure and is, everybody drinks their own Kool-Aid. Nobody believes they're the evil one. It's easy to point the finger at other people. So there is a point at which here on planet Earth where humanity has figured out enough technologically and enough things that, to continue a more base animalistic perspective on how we use those technologies moving forward will ultimately not have a pleasant result for anyone. Yeah. So the gauntlet is kind of thrown down. Like, figure out how to evolve beyond that, or we don't.
Yeah.
You can point at, Antichrist or whatever and blame that person if you want to. Like, you can point at Hitler and blame Hitler if you want to, but
the truth is that's in all of us.
The truth is that people believed him. The truth is that people fall for it. The truth is that people want something to point at and blame and blame the other, and they want some easy solution. And someone easy to point at. It's too easy for us still, even in this day and age, to fall victim to hatred and fear and a retaliatory vibe. It's really all of us. Everyone has to kind of take a look in the mirror and ask themselves whether this sounds like a good idea or not. And sorry, that got kind of like, got to be kind of a heavy episode, but
it's a heavy subject.
It is. And it's, it doesn't surprise me at all that, entities, people on the other side, humans who have experience here, who are already transitioned, extra dimensional or extraterrestrial beings who have interest in our reality. Like, everybody can watch and see the energies. Anybody who has access to the field of probabilities can watch and see how the energies are amassing and coalescing and go, oh gosh, like, is there a way for us to help? Is there a way for us to spread a better message? Is there a way for us to intervene?
Yeah.
maybe when stuff like this happens, or we have so many UFOs show up, it's like, it's at what point do we take the hint? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a chick on a YouTube channel with 48 subscribers. Like, what do I know? You know what I mean? But all I can do is sit here and say, like, hey, maybe there's a better choice for people to make. Like, maybe we start thinking about things a little differently.
All right.
That's what I got. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking around if you're still here. It was a long episode, but kind of an interesting one.
Touched on a lot of things.
For real. Like, subscribe, all of that fun-filled stuff. If you have recommendations for videos, let us know, and we will catch you next time on Unraveling the Unexplained.
Have a good evening, folks.
Mysteries of Unraveling the Unexplained Disappearance of My fucking vape. You know what? Like, I had a pack of cigarettes disappear out here, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the spirit of the garage doesn't want me to smoke, so it
Or
keeps...
they want to smoke themselves.
they keep stealing my vape.